Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to something I haven't done in a while, or something I haven't at least done in a long, or really ever actually, come to think of it. Basically, just doing a podcast here on World of Tanks with someone you guys might have all met before, which is Flashsuppressor, aka Phil. Phil?
Hello, chaps.
Yeah, no, Phil, you might remember from the TOG 2 episode I did of World of Tanks a few months ago. I think it was April last year, actually. Come to think, it was a long time ago. So Phil hasn't been on here for a while, as I have, not been uploading for a while. And considering the fact that I uploaded a new World of Tanks episode for the first time in ages recently, I thought now would be as good a time as any to do a little podcast with Phil, who I mainly play World of Tanks with, and I don't know, we just share a lot of similar interests, shall we say, on things like games, politics, comic books. So we'll just see where this kind of takes us. So, first of all, what kind of tank do you want to go into first?
I think we'll start with a mid-tier medium. I still need to grind a bit on my Panzer IV Hydra.
The Panzer IV H, yeah.
Yes, I thought the H stood for Hydra. At least you told me that one.
Yeah, I think it does. I'm not quite sure. I swear it used to have like the Panzer IV-S Schmautrum turret, and would have like the long 75mm. And back in the day when it had that, and it was also a bit more manoeuvrable back in the day as well. So it was just absolutely overpowered. It was just like one of those horribly OP tanks in the entire game.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, it's still good, I have to say.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, if you'd gotten it back then, it would be basically like, say, if you gave the Panzer IV-S the mobility of your Panzer IV. You know, it would be just insane. It was insane. It was so overpowered. Oh god, I hate encounter battle on this map.
Oh wait. Oh right, it's this one. Fair enough.
I think I'm going to go over to the hill because that's where a lot of medium tanks usually end up, but I'm not going to set my heart on anything too solid, really. Oh god, I just hate encounter map on Prokhorovka or Fiery Salient.
Why in particular? Oh, well, I suppose it's not the most balanced map for that. I mean,
no,
it's rather hard to really get a good angle to try and cap the base. The base is pretty much pointless, really.
I mean, I suppose the thing is like when you create a new game mode, you've got to find as many maps in the game to put it on as possible, but it's just like some of the maps on this game are just not designed for it. Well, this one, for example, I've never really felt like it was a proper encounter battle map.
Now, if anything, this would work well as a siege, because you have this large rise going halfway down the map, which would make a great defensive line.
Yeah.
And I'm under fire from artillery already. Boy.
Yeah, I'd say it'd be good to do a attack assault map on there, with like say the mountain and the little ridge line of the train line being the defending team's bit, and then the other 2/3 of the map being where the opposing team spawns.
Yeah, so that would provide a chance for some interesting tactics, particularly if you had the base up on the mountain, which would then give you 2 layers of defense. However, that might then be a little bit difficult to balance out, not least because there are several choke points when crossing the ridge.
I know, but I can tell you now, it was much worse in that regards in before patch 8.0, when there was pretty much no physics involved. Like you could literally just hang off like a pit, off like a 90-degree angle off of a cliff in a Hetzer, and just insta-kill SU-100s. It was a glorious thing, but it was also kind of ridiculous.
Fair enough, yes. Well, I don't know, Wait, was I there when it was still patch 8? I don't know. I'm relatively new to gaming as a whole, I should probably tell everyone. That was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Treat.
Is that what you say when all of your allies die? Is just, oh well, that was unfortunate.
Yeah, well, we might have to keep a stiff upper lip about such things, don't we?
Yeah, I suppose so. Are you using the stubby howitzer on your Panzer IV?
Yes, I found it to be quite effective on this particular tank.
I think that's what most people generally tend to use on that machine. It seems to be very popular using it more as a slow-moving shotgun type vehicle, whereas the Panzer III-4 is more of a mid-range snipey raider sort of thing.
Yes, yes, I see what you mean. I mean, this one isn't that fast, but it's fast enough to be able to nip around the side, and having something that can more or less insta-kill. Certainly medium and light tanks on slightly lower tiers. Ow. Yeah. That did not go well at all.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest with you people, if you like watching this and thinking, wow, Gitbag and Flashsuppressor are fucking terrible at this game, just go onto Twitter or Facebook. I mean, this is mainly for like the chatter and stuff. I don't know, unless Flashsuppressor does like a 360 in the mid-air on his like Panzer 1C or something.
Oh my, I don't have the Panzer 1C yet actually. I've still been going down the German medium and tank destroyer lines rather than the light tank.
Yeah, it's just doing that first of all, but yeah, no, I think the Panzer 1C is definitely a great one to get. If not at least because it's just hilarious.
It is, yes.
It's a stupid machine and it shouldn't work, but it is absolutely brilliant. So I'm thinking next probably I'd say.
Do we want to go with something a bit slower, like a tank destroyer, mid-tier? Well, do you want to do your new Hellcat, and I take my Panzer IV?
I've had the Hellcat for ages.
Oh, well, you did a review of it just now.
Yeah, I know, but I've had it for ages. I just tend to.
Alright then, well, we can try something else. What do you fancy?
What about the Churchill 3? We haven't done that in a while.
That's true, it's one of my favourites.
Actually, I suppose the Churchill does actually look a kind of little bit like Churchill. It's got like the chubby sides and it's got the sort of solid, rounded sort of face. Kind of does actually look a bit like him, and it's quite a sort of indomitable sort of dog.
It does remind you of a bulldog, it has to be said.
Yeah.
Like the treads of its jowls. Got the tiny nose.
What makes me quite laugh is the fact that it was actually shipped over to Russia, where the wide open spaces kind of like necessitated mobile tanks, and the Churchill has never been mobile. I was just thinking, now of all the things we could send to the Russians, I was thinking that was probably one of the ones I wouldn't send, really, considering how slow it is.
True, but am I correct in thinking that it was employed at the siege of Leningrad to some effect?
I think some were. I don't think we sent that many over. Most of the tanks the Allies did send over to the Russians were, you know, things like Stuarts and Lees and particularly Shermans as well, actually. And that was at the point where they were able to produce a lot of tanks, but they just weren't able to get them onto the front line quickly enough.
Indeed.
So has anything in sort of recent news been catching your eye particularly?
Well, I don't believe we've had a proper conversation about this yet, but how do you feel about Cameron's, or at least what he so far has for an EU deal?
Let me just have a look at this. Let's see. There's the BBC just did an update of it about an hour ago.
Aye.
David Cameron said he was battling for Britain as he arrived in Brussels for a crucial EU summit. Juncker said he is quite confident EU leaders can reach a deal with Britain over its future membership of the EU. So he's trying to put a referendum to the British people remind me again, because I actually haven't looked at this particular part of British politics in quite a while. What is the specifics of it?
Well, the specifics of the deal that David Cameron is trying to hammer out is restrictions on the benefits that EU migrants can acquire and when they can acquire them. Notably, child benefits, for instance, there are cut-offs for people have to have been working in the UK for 4 years before they can get benefits, and there are all sorts like child benefits given to migrant workers, children overseas have to be in line with what they would be getting back home anyway.
Right.
In addition to that, there are certain safeguards for British economic interests in that Britain and other countries that don't have the euro get a say in what goes on in the eurozone.
Well,
that's the gist of it.
Let's see, it says here the key parts of the UK deal, allowing Britain to opt out from the EU's founding ambition to forge an ever closer union of the peoples of Europe and greater powers to national parliaments to block EU legislation, restrictions on other EU nationals getting in work benefits in the UK for 4 years, and changing child benefit rules so payment reflects cost of living in countries where the child lives. So it seems like the bit about the immigrants seems to really more so focus on EU nationals who immigrate to Britain rather than, the general term of immigrants.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely European migrants that are at the forefront of this. That's what,
explicit recognition that the euro is not the only currency of the EU, and that guarantees to ensure countries outside the eurozone are not disadvantaged or have to join eurozone bailouts. A target with the reduction of the burden of excessive regulation and extending the single market.
Yes, I find the point about the financial oversight of non-Euro EU countries to be quite interesting.
Yeah.
Because it's potentially one of the many EU ideas that was intended to safeguard national interests, but could actually lead to closer cooperation. Because this seems to almost be one step closer to a united European fiscal policy, almost, in that, yes, every country in Europe has a say over financial matters.
Yeah, like if it isn't going to create perhaps the most sort of unified political umbrella around Europe, it will at least create a sort of a unified federation of economies by rejecting the idea of a single market. Because it seems like over time, not only Britain has become not the only one that is opposed to the idea of the single currency market, as we've seen with countries like Spain and Greece.
Yeah.
So I think,
and Denmark, notably.
Oh yeah.
Denmark is siding with Britain in that it wants the reforms.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised by that.
It actually has numerous other supporters. Now, Denmark joined relatively late. Well, even later than Britain, certainly. I think it was 2004 it joined, or no, slightly earlier than that.
I was just quite surprised at how much they've sort of sided with us on this issue. I didn't really expect it, to be honest. But I can, and particularly because they're not as in much financial deep shit, so to say, as Spain, Italy, or Greece. But I think, I think the idea of people will be more capable of recognising and accepting the EU if it allows countries to operate on the basis of multiple different economies and values within some giant economic federation rather than one big single economy state.
Yes, I have a feeling that this will sway the majority of voters in the referendum, which is expected to come in June sometime at the earliest.
Really?
Yes. The end of June is the latest estimate.
I'm just going to set up at this crossroads for a bit just so I can cover this bit with my binoculars. Not to mention that Dick Max has some marvellous Gundy elevation. So yeah, those two financial points I think are pretty decent. They're pretty clever little ideas. I think restriction on EU nationals getting in-work benefits. I'm not so sure about that one. That one's a bit sketchy for me personally, I think.
Yes, it does rather smack of xenophobia almost.
Yeah.
And it says, well, I don't know, that might be a slight exaggeration, but you can tell it's motivated less by genuine concerns over the European system and more by sort of internal political pressures, to put it gently.
Yeah, I can see why you'd say that. I kind of feel the same way. I feel like it might just be a bit more of a... I mean, it's understandable why people, I think, would feel like that in this day and age. I'm not saying it's right, of course, but it's just... I just feel like, yeah, it's perhaps a little bit reactionary to some degree. I mean, there are certainly worse examples throughout Europe, such as, you know, the Hungarian Nazi Party, but even still, it's like, you know, it could be much worse. Or it could be much better, rather.
Yes, I see what you mean. No, I agree, but I think broadly it's going to be accepted. However, there is still significant opposition. There are sort of three main factions in this. There's Britain, Denmark, Germany, various other countries that for various reasons want these reforms to go ahead.
Right, yeah.
Then there are some, like the Eastern European countries, where a lot of EU migrants come from, who are opposed strongly to these benefit reforms.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons, Poland foremost among them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Then there is also France, who strongly objects to the proposed financial reforms because it feels like countries that aren't in the EU will be given too great a say, if anything.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that one. I don't think the financial reforms would be too much of an issue with the French, but I mean, I can see where they would be coming from with that one, but I don't think it would actually be that much of an issue really when the time comes to it. To be honest with you, the one major criticism I'd have of it is the restriction of EU nationals and the sort of work benefits. I think that one's a bit cagey. And
yes, particularly the child benefits, because when you think about it, adjusting for each nation's child benefit is in all likelihood going to be a lot less efficient and probably a lot more costly than the current system of just giving them the UK child benefit.
Yeah. I mean, at least it guarantees.
So if it's less efficient and more costly, it strikes me that there's only one possible motivation.
And it, you know, at least guarantees that they have some financial security for their children when they come over here. So, yeah, at the very least, it does provide that to some degree.
Yes, yes.
I suppose you can make that argument of all welfare, really, but it just seems like it's particularly relevant with, you know, emigrating children coming over to a country like this.
Yes, but to be fair, I think it's less... I don't know if that's the concern so much as money being sent out of the UK in the form of remittances.
Right. What's the main difference there, so to speak?
Well, if child benefits go towards supporting children that have moved to the UK with their families, then that money is going to be spent in the UK, it's going to go back into the UK economy. However, if it gets sent to Poland, it's going to go into the Polish economy.
Yeah, so what do you think they're trying more so to oppose the latter kind of financial support?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, okay, well then that's somewhat understandable. Yeah, that's certainly understandable. I suppose they would want to funnel more of the welfare, productivity and return funds of it back into the UK economy.
Yeah.
Especially considering how tight money is for that in recent years. See, so it's funny. Like the thing is, I use Facebook a lot.
Right.
And you'd think such a big thing as this would take like first point of order on like the trending sort of news stories on Facebook, but it's not there at all. It's like something about Shane Warne, something about Sia, something about Iron Maiden, Kurt Russell, National Drink Wine Day, which I'm sure is bollocks.
Well, it's national or international everything day, but yeah.
No, I mean, literally, the only thing I can see as being really considerably relevant at the moment on my trending feed on Facebook is the fact that North Korea are planning to commit to terror attacks in South Korea. Although, to be honest with you, the amount of bullshit that comes out of the North Korean government can't be really entirely trusted, I think, at this point. Although,
Yeah, no, it's just saber rattling. I wouldn't be too worried about that.
I mean, the thing is, the scary thing about a madman is that they're mad and that you can't properly and accurately predict what they're doing, which is, by and large, what most, if not all, North Korean dictators have been. But yeah, I agree. It's probably just saber rattling, to be honest. The most of, considering how much their military technology is very much outdated. Despite that, they still have like one of the proportionally largest armies in the world.
Yes, as a percentage, I do believe they have the world's largest, something like 1.4%
I think it's
of
higher
their
than,
population.
I think it's higher than that, isn't it? Something crazy like 14% or something.
You may be right, but even 1.4% of your entire population in military service is a pretty high amount. I don't know if any other country would have that.
Yeah. Let me see. So, clicking on the Wikipedia on here. Oh, this is a good matchmaking for the Hetzer. I was kind of expecting you to get into yours in a second.
I don't have my Hetzer anymore. I got rid of it to make space in my garage.
Oh my goodness, man! Why would you do that?
But I don't have space in my garage.
Okay, well, as of 2012, it says that, and keep in mind this is as of 2012, so this is about 4 years ago. It says that the personnel in the North Korean military includes almost 5.9 million and 600,000. No, sorry, I'm wrong. Actually, it's almost 1.2 million active personnel with almost 6.5 million reserve personnel, including 600,000 reserves and almost 5.9 million paramilitaries. So army is absolutely huge.
Yes, but I think we can sort of review the definition of army there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these people, they obviously aren't all employed in standard military pursuits. They're in many cases serve as police functionaries. They even serve as infrastructural workers and so on. Because obviously, without them doing that, there's just no workforce anymore because they're all in the army.
Even still, though, about somewhere between 1.25 and 1.5 million active military personnel with at least 600,000 reserves. That is huge. It's a massive armed force. So the idea that the North Koreans could launch an attack on South Korea is possible, although I don't think it would really do it at this point, considering that yet again, like I said earlier, their military technology is, even after all this time, is still very outdated.
Indeed. No, I can't see it happening, particularly since I doubt that China would support them.
Yeah, that was what surprised me particularly when there was all the talk of nuclear war.
Yes, China actually imposed sanctions on North Korea.
Yeah, back in 2013 when that was all starting to flare up, and China actually basically said, no, you know what, fuck you guys, we're not letting you do this. I was actually like, alright, well, despite how totalitarian you are, fair play, China, fair play. I think that actually happened like a few months before I actually went to China. I think when I went to China was after it died down a little bit, but yeah, no, that was some crazy times. I remember thinking about that. That was
just after the new leader Kim Jong-un. Is it Kim Jong-un these days? Yeah, when he came to power. Everybody had sort of hoped that because he was Western educated, he might be a bit more moderate, but not really. And I mean, every time North Korea gets a new leader, and South Korea got a new leader around the same time, so obviously that caused the rhetoric to escalate.
I mean, that was a few months after I'd started studying politics, and even at that point in my life, I was still thinking, holy shit, this is mental. The fact that, you know, two communist superpowers are, like, squaring off against each other over a difference of, you know, what you could possibly argue was morals. It was just insane.
Indeed, yes. Though I'm not sure if we can quite call China a communist power anymore. Haven't they officially abandoned communism?
I don't know, haven't they? I'm not sure if they have just yet, but I'm pretty sure they're pretty much on the tipping point of doing so at this point. I mean, they are pretty much state capitalism at this point, I suppose, more than communism to any degree.
Yes, definitely. I've been watching the BBC documentary on the history of China, just sort of in time for Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
You been watching that one?
No, I haven't, unfortunately.
I really recommend it. Very well presented. Quite entertaining.
What particularly does it focus on?
It focuses on the different dynasties of China, and it focuses particularly on Chinese philosophy more than anything.
Yeah.
How that relates to its history. It's the history of Chinese ideas. It's not military history. That part mostly gets glossed over, as you know, what caused the dynasties to rise and fall. But no, I really recommend it, particularly if you're a fan of a television show. If you're a fan of Avatar, basically, The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra, I'd advise you watch that because you'll recognise so many philosophical concepts.
Yeah. No, I've only started recently getting back into Last Airbender.
Legend of Aang, I've heard it called as well. But
yeah, whoever calls that is way too into the show. But I mean, it's probably one of the best cartoons of all time. But at the same time, it's just still not like, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I've been only getting back into that recently because I remember I was a really big fan of the show when it first came out, but I've only really been getting back into it recently, and I forgot how good it is. I'm almost like halfway through the third season actually, so I've almost finished it basically.
Yes, I rewatched a couple of my favourite episodes of the third season just recently as well, after having read some of the new comic books that are out and having watched the final series of Legend of Korra, just to sort of compare the two.
Yeah.
And it still blows me away every time.
Yeah.
I mean, the animation is slightly inferior to that of the Legend of Korra, but that's to be expected. And, you know, for what they had at the time, and it's still good. It really is.
Yeah.
Just incredible.
It just makes me all the more sadder when you look at the live-action film adaptation, but I don't think anyone really wants to remember that at this point.
No, we don't. Though, in all fairness, I did watch a bit of it on Netflix, and after how hyped up as to how awful it had been...
Why would you put yourself through that?
Well, you know, to have the experience, I mean, for the same reason I read the Twilight books and watched all the films, you know,
Why would you do that?
Because it was entertaining. The Twilight films, some of the Twilight films are really entertainingly awful. They just are.
Okay, that makes sense. Entertainingly awful. I was worried for a second about your, your manly status. Like, I was thinking, God, if he actually likes, Twilight, then he's over. He's done for.
I do not like Twilight.
No, I'm sure you don't. I'm sure you've got a lot more common sense than that to actually enjoy that sort of overly erotic drivel.
It's not that it's overly erotic all the time, it's just boring.
Well, no, that is true, actually. Come to think of it, it's not really that erotic.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the intention behind it, and also particularly the last sort of 2/3 of the last book kind of are.
I'm not sure about that. If anything, it's kind of a cautionary tale because there's such a focus spent on how awful pregnancy and childbirth is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's written by, I think she's a Mormon, the author of these things.
Is she?
Yes.
Oh, I never knew that.
It's kind of interesting what her ideas of romance and sex are, because I think it's definitely a lot to do with her religion.
Okay, well, you know what? That makes it all the more different. Now I finally realise it isn't really that overly smutty. Now I realise that, you know, speaking from that point of view, it must be then incredibly sort of like restrained because of, you know, the Mormon attitude on sex.
Yeah, so it's almost like a cautionary tale, and it's a tale of abstinence for a long time. I mean, the main character is sort of will refuse to have sex with her until she marries him.
That is, yeah, no, I can totally see that now. Thanks for making me aware of that. I never knew that. Fuck me. God. Yeah, no, that just makes it sound all the more worse, actually, comes to think.
No, I mean, the films are really entertainingly, well, at least the first and the very last films are entertainingly bad. The other films are just boring or downright unpleasant. Go after this 01 here. Oh wait, he's behind that ridge. Yes, no, definitely. Actually, let's aim for the Excelsior and go back around that way. No, because, yeah, the first film, it was okay. There was nothing offensive or anything terribly bad in it, or anything like that. And the final film was just wall-to-wall awful. It was laughable, it really was.
It was basically like the fantasy version of The Room.
I have not seen The Room.
Oh, it is fucking hilarious. It's basically just a collage of some of the worst acting and storytelling you'll ever see in filmmaking. The guy who was the star in it, he also wrote it, produced it.
I'm supposed to return to port and go and see if we can take on the Excelsior and the T-34-85.
I am not going all the way back in a tank as slow as this to take on the Excelsior.
Fair enough, I'm going to follow you.
It wastes just too much time. I was going to say, it's basically the guy who stars in The Room is also the writer, producer and director of the film. So you can tell it's a bit of an ego trip. And it's just hilarious. Some of the acting in it is horrendous, like just honest to God, suicidally bad.
Where do they go?
It's like genuinely some of the worst, if not the worst acting I've ever seen.
Armor is damaged.
That sounds entertaining. If I see it on Netflix or whatever, I might give it a look.
Yeah, no, please do, because it is a fucking laugh. I'd love to discuss it with you. It's like, oh God, it's
We should do that. We should do film reviews together.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely going to do a
or we should do sort of co-op gameplay of other games and review those. If you get Portal 2, that has a co-op campaign in it.
Yeah, I actually never played it that much. I played a lot of Portal 1. I found it kind of a bit too difficult. Like I mean, I've been into like computer games since I was 6, but I've only ever really gotten into like properly complex ones around the time when I was, I'd say probably around 12, 13 or so, and you know, Portal came out around the same time, and at that point my mind was just perhaps not sort of like tuned enough yet to properly develop ways of tackling problems in that game, and as such I never really got into it as much as I did with strategy games or so at the time, but I heard Portal 2 is supposed to be really good.
It is, but to a certain extent Portal 1 is a bit more distilled excellence, whereas Portal 2, I don't know, in a way the puzzles are a lot better in Portal 1.
Yeah.
But the environment and the story and everything else are better in Portal 2, really. Because Portal 1 was released essentially as kind of a pre-Christmas quick release thing.
Yeah.
Just to make a bit of cash. And nobody expected it to be as massively popular as it was.
Yeah.
So it had very little in it. The environment's all extremely sterile, and it's pretty much nothing but a really good game mechanic with a well-crafted story surrounding it that you can sort of explore at your leisure. Whereas Portal 2 is a lot more about the story, and the environment and the graphics and so on are all a lot bigger. I mean, I recommend both of them. They're both really good, well worth playing.
Yeah, and the fact that the main villain of Portal 2 is voiced by Stephen Merchant, it's just like, it just adds the little cherry on the top of the cake, I think.
That's true. Have you seen the end credits of Portal 1 and 2?
I have. Yeah, the sort of end one the end to the first one where it's like a text-based sort of like rendition of a sort of little song, and then in the second one it's like a full-on opera with machine gun turrets.
Yes, it's a really sort of cute, quirky way of ending it, and I really love that when the game gives you just a little reward like that.
Yeah, I also quite like how, you know, the Portal series actually managed to make machine gun turrets cute.
And yet they're still intimidating.
Yeah.
When they sort of say, "I see you," in their high-pitched little voice, I mean, it makes the hairs stand up on the back of your neck. It really does. I have to say, if I have to pick my top 5 games, Portal would be right at the top, followed closely by Half-Life 2.
Top 5 games for what?
On PC.
Oh, PC games.
Well, games that can be played on PC that I have played. I haven't played that many games because I've only sort of really been into video games for the past 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
So I've only really played the absolute classics like Portal and Half-Life, BioShock. I'm trying to experiment a bit more. I saw in your blog post you really recommended Undertale, and I've heard a lot of other people say it was really good.
Yeah, no, it's a great
I
game.
bought that and I've been playing it. It is great, I have to say.
Yeah, no, it's a fucking brilliant game. It's like, I honestly recommend it to people on, because it's, you know, it's only like, you know, 7 or 8 or 850 on Steam, and it's a really good little quality game with a bit of quirkiness and humour to it. I mean, for me personally, probably the game probably the new release I probably enjoyed the most last year was probably World of Warships. The one I probably played the most was Fallout 4, but the one I enjoyed the most was World of Warships because I just thought it was a very intricately made battle arena game. But even still, probably the one that had the best story out of any game released last year would definitely be Undertale, without a shadow of doubt.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the way you sort of really feel for the characters and how you have to kind of interact with them.
Yeah.
And it's really a callback to games like Portal, where you get a sense that there's a much deeper story going on and it's gradually revealed to you. It's very well done. It's a very well crafted story, and the gameplay is pretty good as well. It's obviously meant to be a callback to the era when you had about 6 buttons on the controller. And it's just good. I really like it.
Yeah,
I've also been playing another sort of game that's a bit about moral choice, kind of like that. It's called Life is Strange. Have you heard of that one?
I have heard of it. Didn't it come out like a couple of years ago?
It did, yes. It's sort of been released in kind of episodic form. I think it's finished now.
Oh yeah, no, I have heard of it. Yeah, what's it like?
It is really good. It's got an interesting kind of game mechanic. It's a very story-based game. And gameplay is minimal. But the story, the graphics, the setting, the atmosphere, and even the characters are quite well-rounded and really interesting. And it's the kind of story that makes the most of the one thing that video games can offer storytelling, namely the element of choice for the player.
Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it. And if you can get past the sort of high school setting, which I understand may be a bit off-putting at first, if I just tell you that it's set in kind of a high school boarding school.
Yeah.
But it's not your typical high school game. I'll say that for it.
I'm sure it isn't from the sounds of things. I mean,
I'm not going to tell you any more about it because I really think that it's best experienced if you don't know much about it at all.
Yeah, I mean,
but I would heartily recommend getting it, particularly if you're into sort of really story-based games and you like things that are quite slow-paced.
Well, I mean, I'm very much into strategy games, so I probably would quite like it.
Yes, definitely. It's one of the games where your choices will have consequences that you don't necessarily know about at first. They aren't obvious what's going to happen. It's a very well-crafted story, and I'm only sort of halfway through the second chapter out of 5. I can tell already that I really love it. So if that sounds like something everyone would like to check out, then please do.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, I'd definitely recommend. I mean, out of all the games I'd recommend last year, I did do a top 5 on games released last year on my blog, but I mean, realistically, I'd recommend all of them. You know, the ones I put on there were in no particular order: Rocket League, Super Mario Maker, Fallout 4, World of Warships, and Undertale. And I'd recommend all of them equally.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure about Fallout 4 because from what I understand, it's very similar to Skyrim. And everyone brace yourselves and get your pitchforks and torches ready. I don't really like Skyrim that much.
A lot of people don't, I think. A lot of people who prefer...
Really?
I think a lot of people who prefer the more strict RPG style of the previous Elder Scrolls game don't. Me personally, I'm not so much like that. I prefer a bit... I'm going to sound really bad. I kind of like my RPGs a bit streamlined. It sounds scummy coming from someone who themselves thinks that, you know, RTSs should be, by all means, highly detailed and very complex and, you know, interwoven. I really get into strategy games that are like that, but for some reason I just can't get into an RPG that's kind of like that. Hence the reason why I preferred Skyrim to Oblivion and Fallout 4 to Fallout 3. But why don't you like Skyrim?
Well, I think based on what you said, it's for slightly different reasons to you. I dislike it because it's too much of an RPG in that you have to do a lot of grinding. It's a lot of dungeon crawl. There's a lot of stuff to pick up. There's a lot of crafting. I mean, if that's what you're into, then great, but I don't know, it just felt really slow paced. I mean, I've been playing it for several hours, and this plot has barely got started at all, and it's so far just goes through linear dungeons, kind of a la Crash Bandicoot style, killing the same type of enemies over and over again, which is a shame because it seems like the story is really good. But, you know, when it takes so long, and that's what I really liked about Portal. The story was revealed, it was well paced, it was revealed gradually, the game wasn't that long.
Yeah.
You know, I do have a threshold for boredom at some point. Honestly, that's just all I can say to it.
So you kind of didn't like it because it was a bit too slow paced?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was a game that was based around a plot. And the plot then took second stage, really, to the typical RPG things of gathering and leveling up. I don't know. It just seemed like it was a brilliant setting with the gameplay letting it down. I'd have much preferred it if it had been, I don't know, something more along the lines of Dishonored or Half-Life or something like that, where your characters... upgrades and so on are less pertinent. It plays less of a role. You have to think less about equipping yourself for each new mission and so on. I mean, I don't know. It's a dungeon crawl more than anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a dungeon crawl occasionally is fine, but when the dungeons are exactly the same, you've done 5 of them and you're barely past the introduction of the game. You know, there's a point where the frustration just sets in and you can't continue.
I don't know. I kind of agree to some degree on that. I don't like it when games get too much like that. I can see the appeal in dungeon crawlers and stuff, but
yeah, I mean, Zelda was good.
Yeah, I mean,
and things like BioShock Infinite and so on, where you do have powers that you can upgrade, are okay because that makes sense and it fits in well with the gameplay. But when your core gameplay is smashing at things or using a sort of small set of spells, if they have a slightly different color or slightly different stats, and it's, you know, it's obviously meant for you to sort of really think tactically, but when just mashing the melee attack works as well as anything else, any sense of investment is just completely removed. And, you know, I may return to it someday. I'm glad I saw it. It's brilliant in all the ways that everyone says it is. The graphics are nice, the setting is great, and I'm sure the plot, once it gets going, is intricate and well told, but as I say, I've done about 7 hours of gameplay, and I haven't even got to the bit where you meet the Greybeards,
Yeah.
which is near the beginning. So, you know. No, I have to say, in ranking my top 5 favourite games, I would have to say that it's Portal, Half-Life 2, Bioshock Infinite, Dishonored, and now I think I'll go with Undertale.
Undertale. Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yeah, or possibly Life is Strange. I'll have to play both of them a bit more to sort of really see, but I like both of them. Shall we play another round in the togs?
Yeah, sure thing. Sorry, I was just typing something on there. On the Charlton Athletics sort of football page. So they've just announced that one of our best defenders is coming back from injury. He's been out on injuries for like several months, and he's coming back for a bit. So should be.
Oh, that's nice. Did you send him a sort of goodwill message?
I just think people have just generally been sending that in general because he's not our best defender, but he is quite popular. He was injured for ages, and then he was on the under-21s team for a while just to recuperate, and now he's back, and it's really good because he's a left back, and the only real left back we've got at the moment is this guy called Morgan Fox, who I guarantee you, the moment he comes out on a Charlton pitch, he is going to get an innumerable amount of boos because all the fans just hate him.
Oh.
Because he's easily our worst player at the moment.
Well, I don't know. I tend not to get too invested in that way in sports. I don't know. When I watch sports, what I look for foremost is sort of good sportsmanship and so on.
Yeah, no, I agree too. That's what I want to
Just
see.
as that sounds, I like to see sort of things being well played and people acting gentlemanly on the pitch.
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I mean, irregardless of what sport I'm watching, I want most of all to see like entertainment. You know, a really good match, a really good race, or a really good fight. You know, whatever. But yeah, I agree. Like the secondary sort of concern right after that, and possibly even on an equal level, would be sportsmanship and good fair play.
Yes, definitely. I tend to sort of, whenever I watch anything, I tend to support the team that's sort of giving the best play more than anything. Unless, of course, it's something like a national match or, my hometown team of Saints is playing.
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised the first time you told me you were a Southampton supporter.
Well, I'm not a sort of football fanatic. But,
no, I know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I was quite surprised the first time I asked you well, do you support any team? And you said, oh, Southampton. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, well, it's less the fact that I'm sort of really into them rather than just the fact that, it's my hometown, and I really kind of like just supporting a hometown team. It seems like the gentlemanly thing to do rather than supporting, I don't know, one of the big star top 5 in the country teams kind of thing.
Yeah.
That everyone has the trading cards of, though I'm sure Saints have their fair share of trading cards.
I think they will at some point soon, because I think at this point in the league they've gone like 5 games winning, and I don't think they've lost in like 6 or 7.
No, I know they've been having a pretty good streak. My father's over the moon.
Yeah, no, they've been doing really well. If they keep up at this, they might even finish in the top 6 at the end of the season. But I'm going to say probably more realistically they'll end up at something like, I don't know, 8th or 7th. But even still, that would be in of itself a very good achievement for Southampton.
Indeed, yes.
But I'm just saying like top 6 because that's when you get to play European level football against like
that would be exciting.
Against teams like Wolfsburg, Real Madrid,
Borussia Dortmund is one of Germany's other top teams.
PSG.
Penetrate their armor.
Yeah.
Enemy armor is hit.
No, I will watch if Saints are on telly, but I've never been to a football match in my life.
I've been to a few myself. Yeah, and I've been to a few at Charlton's actual home ground, the Valley, which is a really good venue actually. Speakers are a bit fucking loud there though. That does get on my tits sometimes, but no, yeah, it's a really good venue. Really not located next to a few really good pubs as well.
We can even scratch them. Enemy armor is hit.
I like how we're literally the only two standing here. Like, we're the last guardians of this bastion of defence.
Yeah, so it seems like pretty much the entire enemy team has come around here.
Enemy armor is hit.
Do you know who, I mean, I know the answer to this, but do you know who Southampton's main rivals are?
We've damaged them.
Oh, you told me that just recently.
Yeah, but do you know who
No,
it is?
I don't remember. Who are they?
It's Portsmouth.
Oh yes, of course, you're right. Yes.
It was quite funny because at the moment,
We didn't penetrate their armor.
I think, I mean, you guys are like, you're in the top 8 or so, I think, at this point
Enemy armor is damaged.
of the Premier League, and I think Portsmouth, they're like middling in the middle of the 4th division, so they're like kind of in the shitter at the moment. And the thing is, they used to be like, they used to be in the Premier League actually, as recently as back when Ronaldo still played for Manchester United.
Gotcha.
So, well, seems like the criticisms that the British football system is stagnant don't have full basis in fact.
Well, you could say that it's got some weight in it. I mean, it seems like it's getting more and more unlikely for lower level teams to get fully promoted into the higher divisions because of, the massive influx of money.
We're done
And
for.
people are saying
Everyone
like
get out.
that's gonna, what's happened in say the German or Spanish leagues is going to happen to the UK, where you say you have a bunch of teams that have some good youth academies, and then just like 2 or 3 teams that are just completely unbeatable. Like say, Spain. I think it's. I don't think any other team in the last, I think it's like 16, 17, 18 years possibly, any other team aside from Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid,
Ooh, got that 88.
or Barcelona has won the Liga title.
Right.
And I don't think a team in Germany other than Bayern Munich or Dortmund has won the title there in a decade or so. So it's just, you have these few teams that are just like completely dominant.
Yeah, so I suppose maybe that's the inevitable fate of any sport.
I hope so. I hope not. I hope they keep it, balanced out.
Perhaps. Now, I'm sort of wondering whether that might not be almost a universal law, at least for really popular sports. Eventually money begins to count. I mean, you can say the same about baseball and American football.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that, yeah. No,
Or
actually,
basketball, in basketball it used to be sort of local lads, but these days, it's really big business. And
yeah, I mean, I think probably the most apparent sort of reflection of English football in America would be, the American Baseball League. I mean, baseball, its roots is like remarkably like working class, sort of cheap,
definitely.
cheap, affordable, competitive entertainment, that working class always went to, and now it's like completely influxed with just a huge amount of money and such enormous amounts of business. And I mean, fair enough if someone really enjoys it. It does seem like quite a high octane sport at times, but even still, like, it's kind of the same process to a degree. And hell, even in some places, it's kind of happened faster with baseball.
Yes, I would agree.
I think at one point there was even a burgeoning baseball league in Japan before.
Yes, that's very true. Baseball was popular in Japan for a period.
Yeah.
In fact, as far as I'm aware, it still is, unless you have different information.
Actually, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure it still is. But I just remember there was a particularly prominent period of the Japanese baseball league for a period of, I think, something like 15 years before the Sino-Japanese War in 1937.
Right. I don't. Yes. Just from what I've heard, I've just seen like a lot of baseball games in Tokyo and so on. I've heard a lot about them, and it features regularly in anime and manga. From what I've seen.
Yeah. There are some really weirdly specific animes based around sports out there, though. There's this one that's called like Tennis King. It's about this guy. It's not even about superpowers, I don't think. I haven't watched it in ages, but
It's kind of hard to tell in anime a lot of the time. It's so stylized, but yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's just like the main character in it is just like this absolute god of like tennis, and it's just like really intensely builds up the drama of a tennis match. It's hilarious sometimes.
Yeah, so a lot of anime like that, and to a certain extent you wonder how seriously the creators and the Japanese audiences take it.
Probably not that very. I mean, you look at some of the concepts out there. Some of them are just bizarre. But there's the anime out there.
That was a good match.
There's the anime out there. I can't remember what the name of it is, but the main character is this young kid who turns out to be the best bread maker in the world, and is destined to be, the best Japanese bread baker of all time. When it's revealed that he has solar hands, and he warms up bread as he sort of like kneads it.
Oh man, that sounds good. I've heard this may or may not be a different thing. It's called Food Wars, and it's sort of like the last quarter of Ratatouille all the way through. In that it's this really dramatic tone for something that isn't dramatic, and that just creates comedy. I've been watching a sort of fair few different types of anime. I generally prefer animes that are a lot, well, to put it crudely, more realistically drawn. They're a bit sort of quieter in tone and lighting, something along the lines of Last Exile, or Death Note, or Mirai Nikki, Future Diary.
Mirai Nikki is a fucking bizarre show. It
is, but the style of drawing is a bit more toned down. It's all cohesive with sort of fewer like flashing images.
Yeah, I kind of feel a bit freaked out by that one because I mean it's actually a very well animated anime, and
it is,
and the story is really good, but at the same time, the tone for me is a bit sort of like. Not really sure how to put it, but it's just a very, very jarring because it's
kind of disturbing because it was the first anime I ever actually saw. I was about 15.
Well, that is a fucking terrifying one to start off with.
I know, but it held a bizarre fascination and it got me into more anime. I really like it.
No, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just I just find it really, galling at points and kind of jarring how it skitters really jarringly between psychologically disturbing and comedic, and then physically disturbing and action packed. It's just its tone kind of does seem to be a bit over the place, and sometimes I do think that harms the narrative a fair bit. I think that does happen to a lot of animes as they get older and older and they go more further on and on. Either that or they just repeat themselves. But
yeah,
I think if you're looking for one that has a schizophrenic tone, I think Mirai Nikki is particularly prevalent in that regard because its tone is just bonkers.
Yeah, it's a really kind of disturbing one. It's sort of a bit of a thriller like Death Note, but it's focusing more on kind of disturbing and dark humor, and it's a bit of a different kind of setup. If you want an anime that is just really over the top and contains every single anime cliche that you can think of, then what I would really recommend is Kill La Kill.
Up and at 'em, lads.
Oh yes, fucking hilarious show that.
Yeah, I really like it. It's good when something kind of doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I don't really have a problem with fan service in anime. I mean,
no.
Kill la Kill is probably one of the few where I would say the fan service is a little bit distracting because it's quite gratuitous, but
yeah,
ultimately I don't really have that big a problem with it, to be honest. And even then, like you said, yeah, it's entertaining, it's high octane, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's action packed. It's got scantily clad women just like fighting these absolutely nonsensical battles with living clothes. It's utter nonsense, but it's hilariously sort of, it doesn't take itself too seriously, like you said. I quite respect that.
One thing that I kind of felt a bit weird about, I mean, again, this may just be sort of a Western person watching anime feeling this way, but I thought it was a courageous choice to have the fan service on your main character.
Yeah.
Who is sort of portrayed as, well, who is a really strong, well-rounded character.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Game of Thrones in that when the sort of daring scenes do start ramping up, you feel a lot more for the characters because they weren't just introduced for fan service in that way.
Yeah, that's one weird thing I felt about the main character in Kill la Kill. She's clearly designed for a lot for fan service, but at the same time, she is a very well-rounded character. And, she's quite likeable. I think she's.
Yeah, totally. I think it's okay. I mean, there are different cultural ideas of what is acceptable to show, and you need to bear that in mind when you watch anime if you're a Westerner. But I like it. I thought it was good. I thought all their choices kind of worked out more or less. Yeah, and there's nothing offensive in it. Not at all.
No, I mean it's not like at least you have something to pair the fan service off with. I mean, even if the fan service isn't designed to be some sort of meaningful statement, at least it's paired off with something of good quality, like say a good and believable and likeable main character. Whereas one anime that's very popular, I've never really been able to get into myself, is Naruto, where the fan service there is gratuitous to possibly an even greater extent than in Kill la Kill.
Really? I thought that was something a bit like Dragon Ball or something that was kind of for everyone almost.
Kind of, yeah, to some degree, but at the same time, some of it is very fucking pervy. And but at the same time, I've never gotten into Naruto because I just don't like any of the characters. It's got way too much filler in it. It's just some of the. Oh my god! I tell you what. If there's ever an anime that was never designed for dubbing, it was Naruto, because the English dub for it and the basically either of the theme songs from Germany and Croatia are both just horrible. So honestly, it's got some of the worst foreign dubbed intro songs ever, and the English dub for it is horrendous, absolutely awful. It's like you listen to Naruto in the English dub and you just want to sort of pull his teeth out and kick his face in. Such a little twat in the English dub. It's really
I could never really get into it. And also, it's kind of off-putting when you see animes like that, or like One Piece or Fairy Tail or Dragon Ball. No, I'm not sure about Dragon Ball, but ones that have several hundred, close to 1,000 in some cases, episodes. I sort of feel like you don't necessarily want to invest that much time in it.
I think the thing is, though, if you, regardless of what kind of show it is, if it's got, a good formula that, is able to refresh itself decently and is able to update as time goes on, then you can, keep up to date with it and, keep yourself invested. Friends, for example, is a very simple show, and, okay, it's not anime, it's not a cartoon, it's very, very, very different, but it was able to keep itself entertaining and fresh, at least for the most part, for 10 years, over like hundreds and hundreds of episodes. I think
impressive, particularly for a sort of live action sitcom.
Yeah, I mean, I think...
I can just about see how The Simpsons and Family Guy managed it.
Yeah, I think Naruto could have done that with the resources it had at hand, but it just didn't.
Fair enough.
It just didn't reinvent itself, and it didn't sort of innovate, and it didn't, try to refresh itself now and again, and therefore it just got really stale, and it's I think it's one of the, if not the most longest running anime, and it's just going on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and it just won't stop. I think one of the longest running animes in terms of like continuing franchise name, although not necessarily episodes, is actually Tiger Mask. because
I have never even heard of that.
they've done, I think they've done 2 or 3 series of it. They haven't produced as many episodes as Naruto, but they've done like 2 or 3 series, and I think they produced like 2 live action films. And I mean, in terms of like actual time length, it's not as long as Naruto, but I think it's been around in terms of like name and franchise since I think it's the early 70s, I think, and it's like a phenomenon in Japan. It's immensely popular over there.
Yes.
And that's an example of one that's been going on for ages and ages and has like hundreds of episodes, and by and large it does reinvent itself in each iteration. And you know, the live action film is a little bit darker, but it's also got a bit of sort of dry humour to it. And the 80s series that ran for, I think, for over like 100 episodes is quite a decent anime, actually.
Fair enough.
Even though 80s anime series aren't regarded that well, it was actually a very good show.
I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
At the moment, the one that I've been watching a bit to sort of get a bit more variety in the kind of anime that I see is Fairy Tail, which is in a similar school to something like One Piece, from what I can gather.
Yeah.
But it seems decent, and it has a style that is appealing. Not too over-the-top anime-esque, like something like Kill la Kill, and it's sort of a nice mix of the best aspects of different types of anime.
I don't like too many show and jump animes that much these days. I mean, I was very much into Bleach when I was little, but even then, I kind of tried to trick to slightly more different ones, like say, One Punch Man, or you know, or like the real proper classics like Fist of the North Star and Dragon Ball Z. So you know, it's either the classics, or if it is a modern one, then it has to be something that's a bit more different and a bit more unique, so to speak. Not to say that I never liked any of the show and jump ones. I'm just saying it's like just a moulding or evolution of tastes to some degree.
Fair enough. Ah, I'm dead. Damn, I really like this map. Now, it's interesting that you should say that, because I've actually been doing a bit of looking into anime and animation and how styles differ.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned about anime is that for a lot of anime, particularly sort of fighting anime like Bleach, the animation studios tend to put pretty much all their effort into animating the choreography for fight scenes.
Yeah.
And to compensate for that, they then pretty much neglect almost everything else, where the characters are standing stock still when they're talking. There's a lot of talking. And often, like when they do a close-up, they literally only animate the character's eyes. And you don't even see the mouth move, because they just don't have the resources to animate that, as well as their well-choreographed fight scenes. It's a great example of necessity informing style that I really like.
Yeah.
And in a way, that whereas Western animation had sort of always kind of had the characters moving a bit more realistically.
Yeah.
And then in the fight scenes, it was all kind of standard. Which is then why something like Avatar is so great, because you have the best of both worlds. You have the really intense, well-choreographed fight scenes.
As prevalent in
but
anime.
You still have the Western-style realistic character movement.
Yeah, no, I can see what you mean there. Yeah, yeah. I always felt like the talking and walking scenes were quite fluid, and then the action scenes were suitably flashy and vibrant. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it always works really when you mix Western and Japanese animation. It's definitely an interesting venture to do, and I think if you're going to do it, you might as well do it. But you know, be aware to do it well and do it absolutely, you know, to the best of your fullest abilities, like they did with Avatar. Because I think that's probably the only real major example I can think of where it worked really, really well. There are probably some more obscure ones out there that I don't know about, but I mean, that's probably the most major one, that and Legend of Korra, that I really know about.
Yeah. Though to a certain extent, Legend of Korra had slightly less realistic character movement. I don't know why. I think they had different animation studios working on different seasons for Legend of Korra anyway. So, and you can see noticeable style changes, but the characters, when they do sit around and talk, tend to move slightly less, and the fight scenes do tend to be a bit more intense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's still good, but it's a noticeable difference to the original series, and a noticeable difference between the first two and the last two series of Legend of Korra.
What would you say, I mean, without spoiling it too much, what would you say is probably the best season of either of the two shows?
The best season of the original Avatar has got to be the last one.
Right.
It has the greatest character development, has some really intense fight scenes, and it's the sort of payoff to all the build-up we've been having so far.
Yeah.
The best series of Legend of Korra is actually a really, really tough one, because it's got to be either Series 3 or Series 4. And I'm having a great difficulty in deciding, because those two, unlike the first two, are more or less a continuous kind of theme. Different villains, but same storyline, more or less, interestingly enough. So it's kind of hard to separate the two, but ultimately I'd say Series 4 is the best, simply because of the really heavy issues that it touches on.
Yeah,
and it dares to show something.
I've never really watched Legend of Korra again. How many seasons is there of it?
There's 4. There's actually quite an interesting production history behind all that, because Nickelodeon really kind of screwed over.
Sorry.
Yeah, really kind of screwed over the creators, in that, you know, they were expecting, well, the plan originally was to only make one series, just to be a sort of quick follow-up, and the series are short, and there's like 12 episodes in each, whereas the original had 22 episodes per series.
Yeah.
And so then very quickly afterwards, they were asked to come up with a second season of Legend of Korra. Oh, sorry.
So was it originally just meant to be a spin-off thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there was always the sort of idea that there could be something after the first series, but they were asked to do something so quickly, and it came out a bit rushed. Season 2 is definitely the weakest of the 4, though it does have, quite possibly, the single coolest thing in any Avatar series at all. I'm not going to spoil what that is, but let's just say it really adds to the mythos of the world.
Yeah.
That they've built, and it is so worth seeing just for that, even though the pacing is a bit off and the characters are as well in that, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
The first series is good. There are definitely weak points to it, but a really great setup and villain calls its load. I mean, the villain in the first series is on a par with the Fire Lord for how intimidating he is.
Really?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the design on the villain, but, you know, they did the same thing with him. We very rarely see him. He's built up to be a real threat. And, you know, it's just a really scary villain design. Brilliant.
I quite like the design of the Fire Lord, because, like, for the first almost 50 episodes of the series, you never see a glimpse of him. And then the first time you see him, he's like quite a plain face, but at the same time he's clearly got the stature of a man who means business. And
of course Mark Hamill's voice acting, as always, is good.
Yeah, really great.
I love how varied he can be. I mean, you'd never know that I mean, I'd never think, oh, that's Luke Skywalker.
I mean, he also...
Or, oh, that's the Joker.
Yeah, exactly. Don't forget he was the Joker on both the Batman Arkham games and the Batman animated series from the 90s.
I didn't know he was in the Arkham games.
Yeah, no, he's the Joker in the Arkham games, and he was Batman in the animated series from the 90s, yeah.
Yes. No, Legend of Korra is definitely worth seeing right the way through. Don't let yourself be put off by some of the things that it did not quite perfect in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I've heard a lot of people complaining about in the first series is that there's kind of a love triangle, and the pacing is a bit off, because it switches between the main storyline with the villain and something completely different.
Yeah.
Something completely different is actually really cool, but since it interferes with the main storyline with the villain, it sort of got a wee bit of animosity. I don't know. I took it for what it was and really liked it. Series 2, when I first saw it, it's really creative. It's a good follow-up, but they do totally weird stuff with the characters' personalities.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people actually find Cora really unlikable, at least for the first 2 series.
I'm just going to have to see for myself, because I mean I haven't really watched it yet. I've only really watched first show and its 3 seasons.
Well, I've got the DVDs, so you'd be welcome to borrow them. I can bring them to you for next week's seminar if you fancy it. Or bring them to you tomorrow when we go and see Deadpool in the cinema.
Sorry, what? I didn't hear that. I was looking at something else.
Yeah, I said I can bring you the DVDs next week if you fancy it during one of our seminars. Or I can bring them tomorrow when we go and see Deadpool in the cinema if you want. Rather than you having to try and find them online or something.
Yeah, that might be quite good. Actually, I'll just have a look, because I do have... sorry. I do have... what do you call it? God.
Amazon Prime, Netflix, Hulu?
Yeah, I was going to say I have Amazon Prime, which is really good for that.
Yeah.
Let me just see on there if they have Legend of Korra. Oh, pardon me. Just double check. Amazon Prime doesn't cost that much actually per month.
No, and I may get it at some point. Have you seen The Man in the High Castle? Is it good?
I don't think I have actually. Let me see. Actually, let me see if I can. They have got Legend of Korra on here. Yeah, I can watch it actually.
Oh, cool. Then we can sort of do a kind of recap and see what we both think of it. No, I really liked it. I think it was a great follow-up. I was worried that it wouldn't work out when I first heard they were doing it, but, you know, there was no need to worry at all, because it's the creators of the original Avatar. They knew exactly what they were doing. They knew what to change and what to keep the same. It was all good. But like I say, the last 2 series are definitely the strongest. And they feel most like the original Avatar. The animation on them is the best. The storyline they've got going is one of the best thought out, and one of the most challenging ones I've ever seen in the sort of thing that is technically intended for children.
Yeah.
No, I really recommend it. One other interesting thing that I've been watching a couple of episodes of, I'll have to see if I can get it on DVD, is Steven Universe.
Oh yeah, I've watched the first couple of episodes of that. That's a really fucking good cartoon.
Yeah, I think I'll watch the rest of it if I can find it on DVD or something.
Yeah.
It's not on Netflix, I know that much. I think it's exclusive to Hulu or something like that online, so I'd have to get the DVDs.
It's funny because a lot of people say that Western animation got really good from 2010 onwards, because there was, you know, supposedly this period between, say, I don't know, let's say like 2001 and 2009 or so, where animation was just bollocks. It was just all shit, with the exception, of course, of the Legend of the Legend of the
Last Airbender Aang.
Yes, that's the one. The Last Airbender, the original Airbender series. With the exception of that being a really good cartoon. And I hear, you know, a lot of people saying, like, with the exception of that, you know, animation in the West really got back on its feet from 2010 onwards. You know, with series like The Legend of Korra, Adventure Time, Steven Universe, Symbionic Titan, you know, the possibility of a Megas XLR reboot, you know, all these different things. You know, the 3D Batman series, Batman Brave and the Bold, which I think actually started production in 2008, come to think of it. You know,
fair enough.
Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You know, all these series that started.
Yes, definitely, they were good.
Post 2010, and are all, at least most of them, are fucking excellent.
Yes, definitely. No, I can see the point with. I can see where you're going with that because I remember watching a lot of things on television when I was young, and they don't compare to what's out there today. When
Yeah.
I first watched Adventure Time, I thought it was actually a parody of a children's cartoon. To be perfectly honest, it was intended
Technically,
for adults.
I think it was kind
But
of originally
just
meant to
how
that.
mature it was and well written, it was incredible.
Or wasn't it supposed to be originally meant as that, come to think of it?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. I think it's meant. It's so good. Everyone can see it. I think it really is intended for everyone. It's not sort of thing. Oh, it's for children. We'll put a couple of things in there so the adults don't die of boredom. No, it's good for everyone.
Hmm.
No, I really like that. The creator of Steven Universe worked on Adventure Time. I think she was a concept artist, or no, not concept artist, or sort of animation director kind of thing. She was involved in the drawing and stylizing of Adventure Time, and that really shows in Steven Universe.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I really like it. So I have to get a bit more into it. I'm not sure about Adventure Time. Something about the animation just puts me off a little. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm not so sure about it. I only watched a little more of it, because to be fair, I only watched about 6 episodes. So.
I'll also say this, Season 5 isn't really that good on Adventure Time. I don't care what anyone says, it's just not that good.
What's not that good?
Season 5 of Adventure Time.
Fair enough.
And a bit of Season 4 as well. I'd still say give them a look out, but they're probably bits like kind of like the weaker works of the series, kind of like Season 1 to Avatar or Season 2 to Korra.
Yeah, okay, I can understand where you're coming from with that. I mean, I suppose it is a bit too much to ask that something that runs for years be really good right the way through.
Yeah, I mean, chances are it will either run out of steam at some point, or it will have a rocky start and then get better as time goes on, but only at a steady rate, kind of like how Avatar went. I think it got better and better and better as time went on. And I'm one of the few people who actually think the first season, while it was definitely excellent, fantastic even, it just wasn't that good compared to the other series shows.
Oh no, definitely. Compared to the other 2 seasons, it is the weakest in terms of that. But I don't know, taking it in its own right, it is still 100 times better than anything else Nickelodeon has ever put out.
Actually, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
I can never think of any Nickelodeon animated show that I've ever really liked.
I don't know, I kind of find SpongeBob funny when I was little, particularly in German. It's actually a lot funnier in German. I've said that before, and I'll say it again, and I'll defend it to my dying breath. SpongeBob is funnier in German.
Really, the only things I really like out of SpongeBob are the first 4 seasons in the film, and the first film, and that's it, really.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, it's not great, it's just, it gets a few laughs. It was entertaining enough.
Yeah.
No, I kind of like Jimmy Neutron and the Fairly Odd Parents a bit. They were okay. Oh, and I love Danny Phantom. Have you seen Danny Phantom?
Oh yeah, that was a decent show.
Yeah, I like Danny Phantom. It's kind of a parody of the Ghostbusters in all the right ways. It was good. Yeah. Nickelodeon has a bit of a rocky history in terms of what shows it chooses to air and what shows it rejects. Some of the decisions it has made haven't always been entirely well advised, I would say. But no, I really loved season 1 of Avatar. It sets everything up. I don't know, I'm not entirely sure if it had any particular weak points. It's just that the succeeding seasons did everything else better.
What about the episode The Great Divide?
Well, it reminds me a lot of what the nostalgia critics said about that. Even the weakest episodes of Avatar are worst average episodes of any other TV series.
Yeah.
I mean, The Great Divide would have been a perfectly okay episode for
Enemy armor is
anything else that I can think of right now.
Yeah, I can see what you mean with that, yeah.
But, it's just so subpar compared to everything else that Avatar had done up until that point that it became the most hated episode.
It was a rubbish episode, really.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if the ending had been slightly different, it could have been okay.
I just think if the episode overall had been better, it would have been okay. It was just a rubbish episode overall, I think. Every time I go back and rewatch the series, I always avoid that episode because it's just rubbish.
Yeah, I've only ever seen that episode once or maybe twice when I showed it to my little sister when she watched the series with me. There's no reason to watch it. It doesn't connect to everything. But it did open up the possibility for that hilarious joke in their season recap.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was another thing that Avatar did so well. So many things have to do clip shows for a filler or because the studio demands it or whatever. But Avatar, the creators of Avatar obviously thought, okay, we have to do this. How can we do this differently and make it entertaining? And the answer is like that.
Yeah.
That is how you do it.
There's a bit of self-awareness in where, you know, you not only have like clips from previous episodes, but you also include it with a bit of, you know, actual active piss-taking by other characters.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it actually aided character development of all things.
Yeah, and it's sort of, I like how they really parody each of the characters' main, you know, mannerisms, like how Toth is a sort of like a brutish sort of Neanderthal, and how like, oh God, I keep forgetting her name.
Tara?
Yeah.
Suki? Yeah, okay.
Tara, how she's like overly emotional and overly spirited, and sort of like how Zuko is just always grumpy as fuck.
I really love the detail that they put the scar on the wrong side of his face.
Yeah.
That was just brilliant. I really liked that. Now, The Legend of Korra does a clip show as well at the end. And it doesn't do it quite as well as it could have done. Because it is just a sort of series of flashbacks with the characters telling what happened. But they do kind of rescue it in that they do almost do a parody of it in the end. I won't spoil how they do it, but they do get some good comedy out of it. And I can see why they kind of had to do it for a sort of filler, because they run out of budget, because the last 3 or 4 episodes of Series 4 of The Legend of Korra are just wall-to-wall spectacular action. They're like the last 4 episodes of the original series.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can see why they had to do it. But it's a bit of a missed opportunity, because they have a stylistic choice for all of the episodes for how they do their sort of intros previously on Avatar, their version of that.
Yeah.
They had incorporated that into their clip show. This really clever style that will have you in absolute fits the first time you see it, I'm sure. Then, yeah, then it would have been a lot better. But as it was, as clip shows go, it was still good.
Yeah, I don't mind clip shows so much, as long as they're just done well. I mean, lots of people have really big problems with them, and I can understand why. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't really have that much problem with them, just so long as they're done decently enough.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how these days, with the internet, they actually really incorporate criticisms from the fans, because prior to the internet, they animation and film producers and so on would have had focus groups at best. But you know, with this, feedback on a new episode is instant, and they can sort of see what people liked and what they didn't. Not only does that allow them to do clever stuff like this, it allows them to improve future episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that for the Great Divide thing, they just got a load of feedback that was complete rubbish. And so they made fun of that as well. But no. And yeah, they definitely did that in the Legend of Korra clip show as well. No, it's not really a spoiler, I can tell you that. They do a sort of parody scene where the villains from all the 4 series are kind of talking to each other. And the villains from the 3 series that were really good kind of exclude the villain from Series 2, who was considered a bit bland.
Oh, right, I see.
So, and they just sort of say, oh no, let's not get him, he's boring.
So they kind of did the same thing with that as they did with, I don't know, the Great Divide episode in the Last Airbender.
Yeah, definitely. No, yeah, it's really good. Legend of Korra is definitely well worth watching. Well, with that epic conclusion there, where can we sort of move the thing on to... Oh, wait, Tog.
Yeah. I'm just going to head off in a little bit, but I think we might as well have like one more last...
I think so.
One more last game. So, I guess one more like little talking point we could go on to, just really quickly. So me and Phil, I'm probably going to be uploading this episode on Friday, so we're going to go see Deadpool on the same day that this episode goes up, but we're recording this the day before. But basically, when we go see Deadpool tomorrow, what do you think it's going to be like?
Well, I think that it's going to be good. I mean, I've yet to see a single Marvel film that wasn't good. From what I've heard, though, the plot is kind of basic. And it's sort of like Ant-Man in that regard. They take a basic plot and do everything they can with it. And the great sort of cinematography, great technique for filmmaking, great characters, great dialogue really pull it through. That's what I'm expecting. I expect it to be good. I expect it to take full advantage of the character and so on. I expect it to be funny. But I don't expect it to be like Winter Soldier or something like that. I don't expect it to be in like really top Marvel film.
Well, to be fair, I don't think that necessarily means a bad thing. I think you can still have a good film with a simple plot. Of course,
yeah.
I'd much prefer if films do have, good plots. But
well, I'm sure it's a good plot. I'm just saying it's one that's kind of been done.
No, I know, but I'm just saying like
a bit like Iron Man, and I think it's going to be quite comparable to Iron Man. It's a great origin story.
I like the idea of that. I mean, the thing is, I prefer my films to have good plots, but I don't mind it if they're a bit simple, just so long as it's done well.
I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it immensely. I'm sure all the fourth wall humour and stuff that Deadpool is famous for, that he's the only Marvel character who's aware that he is a fictional character.
Yeah, I quite like that. That's like part of the reason why I think DC are kind of going downhill in recent series is because they tried to do that with multiple characters over the years, and they've just never really cottoned on how to do it properly. And I mean, they've come close multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, with the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, I really liked. I'm not sure.
No, I mean, in terms. No. I'm not saying in terms of quality. I'm saying in terms of like self-awareness and a bit of self-parody. Because, like you said, Deadpool is like one of the most unique characters in that he can definitely do that. But I'm just saying, DC have tried to do that multiple times, and then they've never really succeeded, except maybe in part with someone like Lobo. But even then, he's so fucking generic. It hurts.
Fair enough. I don't know. I kind of think that. I'm one of the people who likes the 1960s Batman.
Oh yeah, no, me too. That's my dad's favourite version of Batman. He's not a massive comic book nerd, but when I did say to him like, "Who's your favourite superhero?" he said, "Batman, easily." And I said to him like, "Well, what version of Batman? The 90s Batman, the Christopher Nolan one, or the 60s one?" And he said, "60s one with Adam West," because that was like the one he grew up with. And I can see why, because it's a fucking hilarious show, 60s Adam West Batman. It's just, sometimes it's nonsensical. It's like, some days you just can't find a place to put a bomb. It's just like, sometimes you listen to what they're saying on the show and you're thinking, hang on, what the fuck did they just say? You just think like, what? Who wrote this bollocks?
I know. It's sort of very much a comic book thing. It takes like the style of comic books.
Yeah, I mean
every shot looks like a comic book panel.
It's kind of like a weird sort of tonal shift point between the original comic books and the post 60s comic books as well. Because 50s and 40s Batman is quite like kind of jovial, swashbuckling kind of character who also occasionally carries around a gun, kills commies, and boots gangsters off the edge of buildings. post 60s, he's quite sort of grim, dark, and dour in terms of personality, and usually more often than not disarms people. But I think the 60s TV show got like a good little focal point between the two.
Yeah, I really liked it. All I can say though is that I'm glad that he wasn't in the end chosen to play James Bond. That was a thing that could have happened. He was considered for the role of James Bond.
I actually never knew that. I'm quite glad that didn't happen. I love Adam West, but he would have been horrendous for
No, it would have been like the sort of cheesy campiness of the Roger Moore James Bond films multiplied several-fold. Not that I had a great problem with that. I was okay with it. I mean, James Bond as a sort of wisecracking character. It's kind of interesting to watch how James Bond has evolved over the years from being sort of suave 60s Sean Connery to the campy 70s and 80s. Roger Moore, the sort of like 90s over-the-top action Pierce Brosnan, and the modern gritty dark Daniel Craig.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, my laptop batteries unfortunately are running rather low.
You've got a charger cable, man. Use it.
I have.
Alright, well, I think I'm going to end it there because I've just got to go off to do some housing thing for next academic year. But no, it's...
by the way, anyone who's listening, don't put off finding housing for your academic year after you're kicked out of halls.
Yeah, actually, that's something. To anyone who's watching this in their first academic year of uni, start searching for like houses like start searching for houses. I'd say probably around mid-January, and like
definitely,
and like really put your all into it because you'll need to find one soon. But
I landed on my feet despite sort of not doing that. But I'm sure not the same could be said of everyone.
Yeah. I almost didn't do that for my second year here, but I just about did, so I got a bit lucky for my accommodation for third year, so yeah, I think we've all done well, but yeah, anyone who's watching this in their first year of uni, get on it as soon as you can, but thanks for joining me on here, Phil. I think I'll try and do this now and again with you and maybe even some other sort of people I know online.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, then we could do a sort of full 3-TOG battle. Would be great.
Yeah, and I'd like to make this, I'm not saying it's like an organised series like, say, my Fallout 4 playthrough, but I'd like to make this a semi-regular thing, where I just invite people on and just chat about random shit while playing a certain game.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Maybe we could do it at World of Warships sometime after I've ground up a bit.
Yeah, definitely. But anyway, thanks for coming on, and I'll message you over like text or Skype later about seeing Deadpool tomorrow.
Sure thing. Before I go, can I just say I'd like to pump my channel for a moment. I've got a channel dedicated to scuba diving videos from my university dive club. I've put one video on there so far. There are a couple of others from previous years. I plan to make a regular series documenting as many of my dives as possible. So if you're into that, click on and subscribe.
Fucking shameless plug-in. Seriously, dude. It's not even your channel as well, it's mine! Stop taking revenue away from me, you fucking bitch!
By the way, would you mind putting a link in the description that I'll send you?
Oh, for fuck's sake! Yes, Phil, I will! Stop pestering me!
Oh dear, good. For a moment there, I thought we were going to go without a Ted Gamer Rage.
Oh, shut up. But no, people, if you do enjoy like stuff like scuba diving and a bit of like outdoors activities, I will put Phil's channel in the description below, and do check it out if you like. If you're into that.
Nothing too spectacular on there yet, but I have high hopes.
I know, but I'm just saying to people, just check it out if they're into that sort of thing. So, yeah, thanks for coming on, Phil, and
anytime.
And I'll be messaging you later about seeing Deadpool tomorrow. And to any of you who have enjoyed this particularly, leave a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe. And if you'd like to see more of this, let us know. Until next time, I'm Gitbag the Great, your Phil.
Oh, right, you're talking to me, sorry. Yeah, I am Flashsuppressor, and I can't wait to do another video. Bye.
Alright. Take care, guys. Have fun with whatever you're doing. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and see you on the battlefield.